Weird Al on brand, Rick Rubin off brand, speculation, and fraud. Welcome to the Unlimited Supply Podcast, your daily music business TLDR in your ear, powered by panic, legal warfare, and squandered opportunities, and brought to you by No Disc, helping music technology and finance companies navigate the music industry, and partnered with Digital Music News. I'm Lars Murray. It's July 7th, 2026. It's Tech Tuesday, but before we geek out, the conscious uncoupling of Scooter Braun and Hybe rolls on, just a few years after Hybe bought Scooter out of his Ithaca Holdings company for $1 billion, which looked like a lot more money in 2023 than it does in 2026. That's one queener, which is a lot anyway. Just before the holiday, Ariel King reported over in Billboard that Scooter would become a strategic advisor instead of a board member, which could be roughly translated as he was strategically moved from board to advisor, which doesn't seem like a move he would be in a particular hurry to initiate. Not a whole lot of reporting on what's next or what's behind the move, so feel free to speculate away. Speculation is the bread and butter of the prediction markets, and why does this matter in the music industry? Well, for one, because one of the many ways that you can make money off of streaming fraud is by betting on chart placements and putting in the fix by manipulating streaming numbers, and that appears to be exactly what happened with Malcolm Todd's hit Earrings on Spotify. How certain is Spotify of this? Well, they docked him 500,000 streams after Earrings spiked a surprising 70% in a day and knocked Drake out of the top position, thus rendering the smart money, which was on Drake, out of the money. Back in April, when Beat Dap dudes Morgan Hayduck and Andrew Beatty presented their 101 on the streaming fraud industry at the Hits Home Summit, we talked about streaming fraud and how the money generated by streaming fraud has a lot of uses, including money laundering. This one's a new one, and big ups to Spotify for not only spotting it, but changing the outcome. Not so big ups to Kalshi, the prediction market on which the bets were made, for not picking up on it. According to everything we learned from Morgan and Andrew, the big mistake the prediction market guys made was choosing a high-profile bet. Number one in streams. That stuff gets noticed, and the key to successful streaming fraud is doing it in so many places in such small quantities that nobody really notices. No, I'm not providing crime tips or advocating the crimes, just spreading awareness, which is essential. After all, this is what you get when a pair of unregulated gambling platforms, because make no mistake, that's what Kalshi and its rival Polymarket are running free in the shallow money trench of the music industry. I'm trying to make up my mind as to whether Kalshi getting played by fixing the streaming numbers is a worse look than what's been going on over at Polymarket. Kalshi gonna Kalshi, Polymarket gonna Polymarket, but Polymarket understands the cultural power of music in marketing perhaps a bit too well. If you've been watching the World Cup, it's been pretty impossible to miss Polymarket's ads. And what does this have to do with music? Well, they've signed up Future and Peso Pluma to star in their ads, which is sort of understandable. Young Latin and hip-hop stars chasing the money, very much on brand. But my old boss Rick Rubin, the Zen master of all things creative, the man who tried to bring Eastern philosophy and vibe coding together, is now a spokesman for cheap, addictive dopamine hits for a global audience and telling folks to speculate away? Gotta say, it's a bit of a needle scratch for me, even putting aside my former role as one of the diligent worker bees behind the scenes supporting Rick's lifestyle, and trust me, we were not meditating until noon. The Polymarket thing is kind of a bad look for brand Rick, though I guess once you've appeared on Mark Andreessen's podcast, you've already lost some guru points. But this is sort of worse. In fact, the only reason that I know that he was on the Andreessen Horowitz podcast, or that Pete Townsend suggested that Rick needs a good slap every now and then, is this Polymarket ad sent me into a deep dive. For Rick, this is off-brand not just because gambling is pretty much the opposite of a Zen activity. It's also that Polymarket actually got busted for their own brand of fraud. Yeah, fraudulent advertising. They literally staged ads showing people winning big on Polymarket. They did this by creating dummy websites and suggesting that bets that would have lost a better $160,000 would have won them $700,000. I don't know, but I'm not sure appearing in the ads of a fraudulent advertiser is the greatest look maybe for Rick Rubin. This isn't Netanyahu or Lizzo level brand destruction, but I suspect this will not age well. At least the Kalshi ads Timothée Chalamet is doing for the World Cup can easily be mistaken for Adidas ads. But for a guy whose methods have been called out by artists he produced, like Slipknot and Black Sabbath, this Polymarket stuff might be flying a bit close to the fraud flame for Rick. Credit to Travis Bland over at Consequence for reporting what the trades have not. And for a little more background on Polymarket's fraudulent ads, you can check out Matt Steve's article over at New York Magazine's Intelligencer. All right, let's geek out. He may or may not have been right about AI, but a guy who knows his brand value for sure is Weird Al Yankovic. I don't know if back in the 80s one could have predicted that Weird Al would be the model of brand integrity in the 2020s, or that we'd be mentioning him at all, much less comparing him favorably with Rick Rubin. Nobody would have bet that on Kalshi or Polymarket, or the way they did it back then with the bookie over at the local diner. But over at Digital Music News, Ashley King is reporting that Weird Al told a Syracuse newspaper that he turned down an ad for a non-music AI productivity company. Again, he may or may not be right about AI, but he knows an AI endorsement is not a good look for him right now. Back in the day, one of Daniel Ek's most compelling arguments for Spotify was that it would become the streaming OS of the internet and that people would be able to tap into it for all kinds of music through an API. And of course, when it first launched, Spotify encouraged publications and other parties to create playlisting apps before it canceled the program abruptly. Well, that API strategy is still a pretty good idea, and that's why now that Suno has announced an API strategy, we should all pay close attention to what's going to happen there. What software developers are going to sign up for the API? What are they going to develop? If the API is successful, it will further embed Suno into the overall music creation and distribution infrastructure, which in the music AI land grab is an important way to establish Suno as inevitable, or at least it's a bargaining chip in its ongoing negotiations with 2 out of 3 majors. Suno's API has a lot of potential to unlock a lot of value for everyone, including artists and songwriters, but there's still that little issue of training data and getting artists and songwriters paid for it, which is still unresolved. A little more on that later. Over at Music Business Worldwide, Murray Stassen covered the announcement, which came from Suno's CTO, Jack Brody. And another week and another lawsuit chipping away at Suno's legal war chest, which funds its thundering horde of litigators. This time, the lawsuit is coming from production music house Jamendo, which has also sued NVIDIA. Rachel Scharf has all the details over at Billboard. And while we're on the subject of Suno's thundering hordes of litigators, last week, a judge threw out Sony's attempt to expand the scope of its long-standing suit against Udio for unauthorized use of 300 works to 30,000 works, which was a big L for Sony, and honestly, why wait 2 years to add so much discovery to a case? Now, Suno is attempting to turn that little L into a big, bold-faced capital L, asking the judge in its suit to dismiss Sony's claims affecting over 60,000 works, in what ultimately will end up as a messy and expensive negotiation for Sony rights. And that's another Tech Tuesday. It's my first day of MIT Agentic AI school. I've got my pencil box, my Trapper Keeper, and my new backpack, and I'm a little nervous. First day of school is always the first day of school. Support for Unlimited Supply is provided by you, our listeners. Sign up for a full year of support, and you will get the limited edition Unlimited Supply Merit Badge Trucker Hat, which we manufactured in limited quantities by popular demand. If you're just dipping a toe in, you can also get yourself just the merit badge, or literally buy me a cup of coffee. There's a link in the show notes. If you like what you hear, please hit that follow button wherever you get your pods, including now Substack, and drop us a rating and or a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify. And tell a friend or 3. Links are in the show notes, but you can also visit unlimitedsupplypod.com to sign up for our newsletter, to tell us what you think about the show, to suggest feature ideas, to feed us info, to feed us lunch, to call us out on our dubious assertions, and to tell us what we're missing out on. I'm Lars Murray, and remember, in this business, no conflict means no interest.